AI-supported therapy for mental health. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Jimini Health is a digital health company, a startup just out of the gate. And with us is co-founder Mark Jacobstein. Hi, Mark.
Great to meet you, Fred. Glad to be here.
Great to meet you. And first off, some background. Tell us about the company and its purpose.
Yeah, so Jimini Health was started just over a year ago, and our purpose really, we're leveraging AI, mobile, and deep clinical innovation to develop radically more effective, engaging, and scalable mental health solutions. We started the company because there are two problems in behavioral mental health. One is we simply don't have enough care. There are tens of millions of people who struggle with anxiety and depression, and simply not enough therapists to take care of them. And the second problem is that the efficacy of the solutions that we have is not what we would like. And so we set out a year ago now to build solutions that and a therapeutic service that would be highly effective and also ultimately scale to help millions of people.
So you've raised, I understand, about $8 million in funding to develop the AI and the operations here. So describe for us how this will come together from a potential patient point of view.
Yeah. So first of all, what we provide is a service that includes a real human therapist who's highly trained, generally PhD clinician who's working with our patients via sort of telehealth service. In addition to that, you have a care team that includes an AI named Sage, who works very closely with your human therapist to help make sure that your care can be continuous. So if you're struggling with something in the middle of the night and you want to have a text-based session, or you want to review an exercise that you've gone over during the course of your therapy session that week with your therapist, you have an app that has an AI behind it that is helpful for you in that process. So what we're providing ultimately is a therapeutic service for patients who generally are struggling with anxiety. And of course, as I'm sure you know, there are tens of millions of Americans who are, and that service is augmented with the technology piece that we have. But underpinning all of this is a great human therapist.
And of course, there's been a recognition that there should be coverage for this kind of thing. Do you expect that
We
these virtual sessions would be covered as well?
Yes, we do, and certainly over the course of the last decade, the telehealth sessions now generally are covered. The pandemic certainly took care of any last sort of holdouts as far as behavioral health, mental health sessions being delivered via telehealth. Over time, we also do expect the payer community to understand the value of the digital therapeutics that are augmenting those services. I think the most important thing for us is that the service is effective. And so that underpins everything that we do. So it starts with sort of the leading therapeutic minds and great therapists, and all of the things that we do with the digital health service that augments this is in the interest of improving the service. We do think that the payer community understands this, and the thing that ultimately will make sure that we are able to have broad-based coverage for these types of things that we're doing will be data. So we're working very hard to develop clinical data that demonstrates the efficacy of the service that we're running.
So are you in the process now of recruiting therapists to take part in this, or tell us where things stand?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we are live. So we're treating patients. We have therapists. We're live in 8 states, but soon the plan is to be live in all 50. We are moving aggressively as a company to both. So patients, we're open for business if patients want to come to JiminiHealth.com, and for care providers who are highly trained, generally PhD psychologists, particularly with backgrounds in cognitive behavioral therapy. Yes, we are hiring.
So describe for us, are you targeting any particular age group or category here?
I wouldn't say we're targeting a particular age group except over 18. So we aren't yet treating children or adolescents. So you need to be an adult. Typically, we are looking for folks who are struggling with anxiety and maybe some of the concomitant things that go along with that, things like depression, et cetera. We aren't yet treating serious mental illness. So this is not for patients with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, but for folks with anxiety and depression. You could be 25, you could be 55. You do need to be comfortable using your mobile phone and other technology services in order to access the service. But I think at this point, that's almost everyone.
Describe for us a little more about why there is a need for this. Obviously, there's the need for therapists and the online component to this, but why bring AI into it? Tell us what that
Yeah,
brings.
it's a great question. I mean, for me personally, I've been thinking about this problem for decades, both because of my own journey with um, mental and behavioral health, psychotherapeutic sessions, but also I have a sister who's a social worker who, among many other things, for decades has been telling me about sort of the understaffing problems. We have at least 50 million Americans who've been diagnosed with anxiety disorders, and there are only 250,000 therapists in the entire country. And that includes all the therapists. That's psychiatrists, psychologists, clinical social workers, et cetera. The number of patients that any given therapist can handle in the current care model, where I see you for an hour a week, maybe 25 or 30 patients in a week is an absolute maximum for a therapist at this point. You can see there's an order of magnitude problem. And what this means is that most patients don't get any care at all. The standard of care in the industry actually is probably no care at all. And unfortunately, that means that the people who do get care are typically wealthy knowledge workers, maybe on the coast where there are more therapists and folks have more money and more access. So there's a huge care gap. I like to think of mental behavioral health as one of the great unmet sort of medical needs in the country. And then there's a second problem, which is that for at least 2 decades now, the efficacy of psychotherapeutic solutions has been stuck. Cognitive behavioral therapy and other evidence-based therapies that were developed over the last few decades were very, very important in improving the quality of psychotherapeutic efficacy, but they didn't get us to where we need to be. We think that technology unlocks both the scale to treat tens of millions of people and also will help improve the efficacy of these solutions. The efficacy piece happens because no human therapist can be with you 168 hours a week, right? A great therapist is a great therapist, but they're only with you typically, if you're lucky and have access to 1 hour a week. And there's another 167 hours in your week where you should be practicing the things you learned. You may need to talk to somebody because you're struggling with panic or anxiety. All of these things can be augmented by technology. Similarly, the technology should allow us to expand the footprint of the care that we're able to give. If the technology is able to take some of the burden off of the human therapist, a human therapist can go from treating 20 or 25 patients in a week to 40 or 50 or to 75 or 100. This solves the scale problem. And so for a very long time, myself and my co-founders have been thinking about how do we improve access to behavioral health, mental health services in a country where most people don't get any care at all. The rise of LLMs and strong AI, along with what we're seeing with the ubiquitous access to mobile phones, felt like a real sea change in the ability to actually build something that people would want to use.
I guess one of the questions that people might have would be, is the technology really ready to handle this kind of thing? Your AI, Sage in this case, might say or do the wrong thing, in given circumstances. I'm sure those are things that have concerned you, and you must feel that it's ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I start with is everything we're doing, safety is sort of paramount and the most important thing. And the service that we're building is clinical grade. So this is not a consumer service. You download an app on the App Store for free and just start chatting with an AI and it's unsupervised and maybe it hallucinates and says the wrong thing. Everything that we're doing is designed to be inside of a good clinical practice in conjunction with the supervision of your human therapist. And what I'd say about that is we're being very cautious about as we roll out the technology, we're only doing it when we're ready. For your listeners who are old enough to remember Ernest and Julio Gallo. We will sell no wine before it's time. The AI is being rolled out as we feel it's safe and not before.
I seem to recall that one of the original applications in the early days of the internet was a virtual kind of therapist that you would type back and forth with. So this goes back a long time, doesn't it?
The idea is certainly not new. And there are, yes, I mean, you can think of Eliza as a version of that. And there's obviously huge latent demand for this. Lots of people are using consumer AI services for behavioral health. And unfortunately, I think for many of them, which are not clinical grade and aren't structured to handle some of this, it's dicey. It's one of the reasons why, or for us, we want to make sure we do it right. The other thing, though, related to the fact that people have been noodling on this for 20 or 30 years, one of the major challenges, in addition to sort of delivering care that is safe and effective, is also delivering care that people actually want to use. So a chatbot from 30 years ago was interesting, but it was interesting sort of for 5 minutes. The power of a well-trained LLM that actually understands who you are and is working in conjunction with your therapist, et cetera, to understand your clinical needs, at least in the future, we hope is something that can deliver care, which is not what the Sage is doing today, but eventually, perhaps we'll be able to have conversations with you that are not only engaging but highly therapeutically effective and an important part of what your care looks like.
Tell us a bit about the pricing and availability. You mentioned your opening
Yeah,
remarks.
so today the service is because we are brand new, it is a cash pay service, and so that is a out of pocket service that is sort of in line with traditional therapeutic services, given the number of sessions that. So there's different pricing options depending on how many live sessions with your therapist you want per month. And today that's cash pay. We are working very quickly with the payer community to move into coverage with various payers throughout the country. And our hope is that, within a matter of just a few quarters, we should have some broad-based coverage in most of the states where we're deployed.
Tell us what your thoughts are about the stigma that existed for so many years, and has that been fully overcome? Because there's so much today out in the open about mental health. And is it easier for people if they're doing it online rather than in an office?
Um, So great question about the stigma. And I mean, I guess what I'll start with is no, I don't think the stigma is all gone, but we're doing the best we can to huge strides have been made. And the willingness of lots of people to talk publicly about their own challenges with anxiety or depression has gone a long way. And athletes and celebrities, a lot of books around challenges, and even the Surgeon General talking about the loneliness epidemic. All of these things I think are very important. Understanding that anxiety is part of the human condition. My stock line on this is I think of anxiety as a feature, not a bug of natural selection. But that, there wasn't a lot in our history, in our evolutionary history, that prepared us for the life that we all now live, whether it's, the dopamine machine we have in our pockets or the information overload that we have around us. And so it's not surprising that many, many people struggle with anxiety. Fortunately, to your question, a lot of the stigma has been broken down. And I think for a lot of younger people, there feels like there's very little stigma at all. But I think it depends on the community that you're in. I think it depends where you are. I think it may depend on your age and demographic. And so one of the many things that we want to do as we're building the company is also help people feel better about outreach. You shouldn't feel any stranger about getting help for your struggles with anxiety than you do for getting help with strep throat, right? That's the goal. But today, for many people, that's not the case. Telehealth certainly helps. So the ability to do this from your phone or from your laptop in the privacy of your own home or your own office or wherever is something that I think makes it much easier for people, both because of the stigma piece, but also just because of the convenience piece. One of the really interesting things about like access to psychotherapy It's been a wealthy knowledge worker's privilege for forever, not just because it's often expensive, but because I'm going to take Tuesdays off at 10 o'clock on in the middle of the day, travel somewhere, go sit for an hour, have a conversation, travel back to my office is the kind of thing that only people with privileged jobs are able to do. It's not something that fits into the normal work life of most people who work for a living. And so one of the many things that has improved both through telehealth, but also we think through services like ours that will allow you to access the service in some ways 24/7 is it provides access to a whole new group of people who, even if they could have afforded it, didn't have the logistical ability to actually get to therapy.
What do you want people to think of that distinguishes uh, Jiminy from the competitors that are out
Yeah,
there
I mean, I think for
currently and in the future?
yeah, I mean, currently the most important thing for us right now with our service, I was just talking to my co-founder earlier today, is that people are enjoying our service and their health is improving. Our numbers are small because we're new, but our clients are sticking with the therapy for months and months and months, and their GAD-7 and PHQ-9 scores, essentially the measure of how they're doing with their anxiety and depression, are improving and improving, relative to other services in the industry. They're improving dramatically. So for us, the most important thing is that we are effective. And for people who are contemplating using a service like ours, that's what matters, is that it is effective and that people stick with it. And I'm not going to pretend that it's fun. Like therapy isn't fun, but it is there's therapy that is engaging and then there's therapy that is not. And if one of the major challenges that we have in the field is that many patients try therapy for one session, two sessions, and then they peel off and never come back. And as a result, don't have an opportunity to get better. So right now, the thing I'm proudest of is that the product is working. People stick with it, they feel better, and that we think is critical. Going forward, more of the same, of course, is what I would like to say, that the product will continue to improve, the efficacy will improve, but the other piece that will be really important for us is broader access. So the ability for this to be covered by insurance, so that everyone who wants it can have it, I think is another critical piece.
Terrific. Once again, where can people go to get more info?
JiminiHealth.com, and Jiminy is spelled Jimini. So Jiminy with a final I, JiminiHealth.com, and you can go and sign up today.
Well, congratulations on what you and the team are doing there. Mark Jacobstein, thanks for spending time with us.
Thanks, Fred. Great to meet you.